Hola, in this video we're going to talk about the familiar commands or the commands that you use for the to form. Son los mandatos familiares to. Alright, so in this video we're going to discuss what a command is and specifically what an affirmative command is, what a negative command, and also we'll talk about how you form these commands, what the steps are, and the conjugations. And then at the end we'll do some practice. Alright, so first, what is a command? So a command in general is used to tell someone to do something or not to do something. And commands are conjugated in what we call the imperative tense. An affirmative command is used to tell someone to do something, as in speak or eat or study, and a negative command is used to tell someone not to do something, as in don't talk, don't sleep. Alright, so let's start off with how we form the affirmative commands. And again, we're talking about using these for the to form. So this is not the commands talking to a group of people or talking to your teacher or your principal. This is when you're talking to a friend or if a teacher is talking to a student. This is what we use. So put another way, it's how do you tell a friend or someone along those lines to do something? So how would we say to someone, talk? So what we do is we take the verb hablar, and just like we do in the present tense, the first conjugations you probably learned, you take the first and second letter from the end and you eliminate those. So that's step one. And then step two is to take that remaining stem that you have, although I will say sometimes that stem might change into something else. Step two is to take your stem and rewrite that. So in this, we do copy the form habl, because there's nothing different with our stem in this verb. And then the third step is to add our present tense conjugations, but we actually do it for what we would think of as the L form. So for this to command, we simply write a to form habla. If you're talking to a friend and you say habla, that means talk or speak. All right, and these are what those endings are for the to afirmativo commands, so telling a friend to do something. If you have an AR verb, such as hablar, then what you add on the end of the stem is a. So hablar becomes habla. Again, what you did was you took the last two letters from the infinitive, went to the stem habl, and then you add a. And then for the ER and IR verbs, what you add to the end of it is e. So to tell someone eat, it's come. To tell someone write is escribe. You take the last two letters and then add that ending there. Alright, so now let's take a look at how we form the negative commands for the to form, or put another way, how do you tell a friend not to do something? So we'll figure out how we say to a friend, don't talk. Alright, the first step now with these negative commands is that since it's negative, we have to tell someone not to do it. So the first thing we have is no. The second step is to, like we do in other conjugations, take off the last two letters of the infinitive. We're left with the stem. And then the next step, what we do is we take our stem, but we don't always necessarily copy it. Sometimes we have to change it. Now with hablar, it's regular, so we just get to copy our stem like we have here. Now, but one thing to remember when we're doing these negative commands is that you have to go with what is the yo form in the present tense. Now in the present tense, the yo form of hablar is hablo. Right, so there's no difference. It's not anything different from what we have. But in other verbs, this makes a big difference. And then the third and final step, or the fourth and final step in this case, since the first one was to say no, is to add our new endings. And for regular AR verbs, it's ace. So to say don't talk, no hables. And you notice that it does end in an S here, so It feels more like a two form like we're used to. So let's take a look at what those endings are. So for the regular AR verbs, such as hablar, the ending is now ace. So after you take off the last two letters, left with ab, what you add to the end of it is ace to tell someone don't do something. Or for regular ER and IR verbs, the ending is as. So say someone don't eat, it's no comas. Don't write, no escribas. And you can kind of think of them as being the opposite endings for what you have. The AR verbs, it's ace, and then for the ER and IR verbs, it's as. It's almost like we switched the two sets. All right, so now let's do a little bit of practice. So you have your different prompts here. We'll do number one together. So we have comer, sí. So how do you tell someone eat? Well, you take comer, get rid of the last two letters, you left with the stem, com. And then since it's an affirmative command, you're telling someone to eat, and you add a as the ending, come. All right, so take a moment to do numbers 2 through 5. Pause the video, because in just a little bit, I'll show you what the answers are. All right, so now let's take a look at the answers. For 2, you have estudiar, sí, so telling someone study. You take estudiar, and then it's an AR verb, it's an affirmative command, so you add the ending a, estudia. All right, now here's one thing that makes those affirmative commands easier, is that it looks exactly the same as the él, ella, usted form from the present tense. So if you say he studies or she studies, it's the same thing as telling someone, study. Okay, so that does make it easier for us. Number 3, cocinar, no, so telling someone do not cook. You take cocinar, and we're telling them not to do it, so no is the first thing. And then with the verb, take out the last two letters, left with the stem, co, seen. Now it's a negative command, so we use these new endings. For an AR verb, it's ace, no cocines, don't cook. Number 4, we have dormir, no, so telling someone don't sleep. So the first step is write down no, because it's a negative command. All right, the second step is to take off the last two letters. But remember that dormir is a stem changing verb in the present tense. So that means that we are not going to simply copy the stem. We have to change it a little bit. Now remember, we're using that yo form. So it becomes no duerm. And it's an ER verb, so it takes the new ending of as, no duermas, don't sleep. And again, remember, it's similar to the yo form from the present tense. Say, I sleep is yo duermo. Right, so this is similar to that. We use the same type of conjugation. And then number 5, mirar, no, so don't watch. Well, we have no. And mir. It's an AR verb, taking the new endings, ace, no mires. Right, so those are some examples from the affirmative and the negative commands. Adios.